get started in another minute or so. Go ahead and get yourself situated. And again, if anyone has any requests, feel free to put them in the chat. Making yourself comfortable in a seat. If you have a bolster nearby, you might grab that, or blocks, pillows, whatever you might have to set up in front of yourself for props. And just take this time to arrive. The invitation is to rest the eyes. Taking a deep inhale in through the nostrils. Perhaps sighing it out audibly through the mouth. And we may repeat that a time or several. We may audibly sigh. Letting go of tension in the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. This is your time. We may widen the hands, spin the palms to face up, and invite movement into the fingers, movement into the toes, maybe some very gentle head nods. How's the tension in the neck, the upper back? We may lift a hand, it doesn't matter which, and just start to circle. Maybe there's some wrist music. Releasing that hand, checking in with that other wrist, mobilizing fingers. Maybe this is where the wrist music is. If the shoulders are feeling ready to move, consider some shoulder circles. And then pause. Let's circle in second direction. Expanding one arm out to the side. Wrist about shoulder height. And we might have a little movement in the fingers, maybe a little nod of the head. Head might be turning towards the long arm. Noticing how that side body feels, let's open all the fingers and rotate the thumb tip back. So the palm may face up. We're just rotating the thumb tip back, so not necessarily though. And we may go back and forth. Now this isn't just in the wrist. Let the movement come from the shoulder as well. So maybe now the shoulder is rolling forward and then rolling back, and perhaps that arm reaches up in the air. So we're going for a little more length, and we may twist the light bulb. Releasing, let that arm come down, and perhaps now is the time to circle the shoulder. Let the body sigh, second side. So let's expand out, reach out through the arm, maybe a little nod of the head, movement of the fingers. How's this side feeling? There may be some differences. The nose tip may follow the thumb. Check in, find the breath and body. And consider spinning thumb tip up and thumb tip moving back, wherever it feels right for you. And maybe we're holding, but maybe we're just going back and forth. And let the movement include the shoulder. So that shoulder may be rolling back. And then perhaps we're rolling the shoulder forward. The fingers could flourish. We may be finding a little more movement through the head. The palm may face up as we reach that arm up in the air. Go for lift, go for length. We may twist the light bulb overhead. And exhale, releasing down. And perhaps we're rolling the shoulders, maybe just one, maybe both. And we'll find our props tipping, leaning forward, low forward bend. We may join the hands and support the brow. Perhaps squeegeeing the brow as we breathe. The body may sigh. We may bend the thumb knuckles and let the innermost portion of the eyebrows rest on the thumb knuckles. You control the depth of pressure. So if this is really intense, get a little lighter. We may slide those thumb knuckles out a little wider. And then gradually, let's make our way back up. Tip back, lean back. Notice which leg you have on top or in front. extend, point, flex, twirl that top ankle, reach out through the other leg, point, flex, twirl the ankle, trading across the legs, wobbling sits bones back. Hello, this hip. Let's spin palms to face forward and perhaps both arms rise. The gaze may rise. Exhaling, landing in a twist over to the right. Perhaps the chin tucks. Let's inhale through the middle. Exhale, rotating, twisting towards second side. And let's inhale, bring it back to the middle. Thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. We may find those props. And perhaps we're starting to tip in. Maybe we're going a little deeper. Maybe we're staying a little higher. We may find head nods. And slowly, slowly rising up. And as we find our way to the middle, let's just take a moment, maybe shrug the shoulders. Pick a hand and start to draw some circles like we're smoothing the nap of velvet. Draw some circles and then go the other way, circle second direction. And then perhaps we're tipping out, leaning out, circling out wide to one side, going for that reach, that length, reversing direction. And then gathering back in, second hand, we'll start fairly close to the body. We may try both directions, and then perhaps we get a little larger with the movement, circling, reaching, and trading direction. Moving in that second direction. And consider rocking back and extending both legs. Now, we may want to keep the legs a little closer together early on. You might want to roll up some blankets or towels and put them underneath the knees. So perhaps we slide in, lean in just a little bit. Ooh, say hello to the backs of the thighs. We'll make our way back up and then consider circling with both hands together. And reverse it, going the other way. And gradually, let's slide the feet in, and we may cross one ankle in front of the other and rise up to stand. Thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. Let's unwind the legs, and maybe you'd like a couple of blocks or a chair seat, putting them up at one end of the mat. Palm spin to face forward, circle the arms high. And as we exhale, forward fold. Tipping in. Head may nod, bend the knees as much as you like. Maybe circle, nodding the head. And let's put a little bend in the knees, root to rise. We'll come all the way back up to stand, thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. Bring the left leg, and I'm mirroring directionally, left foot in front of the right. Invite the arms overhead, grab the left wrist, the palm faces left. Go for a little bit of length, finding a lean, a tip, side bend over to the right. Let's bring it back up to the middle, trade your wrist grip, trade the cross of the legs, go for length, tip leaning to that second side, rolling ribs back. Let's find our way back to the middle, releasing the arms, unwind the legs. Palm spin to face forward, circle the arms up, and as we exhale, forward fold. Let's keep right leg forward, send left leg back, go for a little lunge, maybe a little movement forward, a little movement back, getting into the toes. Let the hips rise, tap, tap, navigating left foot forward, looking out. Exhale, chest to thighs. Let's rise halfway up, walking the hands over to the right, perhaps bending the right knee, rolling left hip back. Let's find the middle, rise halfway up. Consider lifting the heels, dropping the heels, rocking back on the heels, lifting the toes. Toes fan and release. Let's walk the hands over to that second side, perhaps bending left knee, rolling right hip back. Let's bring it back to the middle, rise halfway up, keep left foot forward, reach right leg back. Finding that movement through the lunge. Hello toes, maybe the toes have been in snug socks, snug shoes all day. Let the hips rise, perhaps we slide the left foot back. Tap, tap, stepping, right foot forward, looking out. And exhale, pouring back in. Bend the toes, put bend in the knees, root to rise. Let's come all the way up to stand, thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. At your own rhythm, palms spin to face forward. Circle the arms high. And as we exhale, forward fold. Let's plant the hands and perhaps we're walking back towards a down face dog position. And we may be pedaling the feet, shifting the heels. We may be nodding the head. We may wiggle the heels a little further back, thighs active. Can the head be heavier? Can the neck be longer? We may wiggle the feet a little further back, rock on forward to plank, land on the knees, slide down to the belly, finding our way into Sphinx position. Sphinx may be still. We might find a little movement. Perhaps we lean a smidge to the right, chin to the right. We may be bending that left knee, finding a little bit of movement, perhaps circling the lower leg. Landing the foot if we brought it up. And perhaps our Sphinx sidewinds and lands, and a little bit of lean to the left, head may nod. We may be bending that right knee, perhaps circling right lower leg, right toes in the air. And let's find the middle, coming all the way down, resting H cheek. Turn the nose to one side, sweep the arms back, invite the shoulders to drape. Planting the palms to the ground, let the chest rise, low cobra, turning the head, resting on second cheek, sweeping the arms back. Body maybe sighing. Let's plant the hands, low cobra. We may sweep the legs together, pressing back into a child's pose. Listen to your toes, to your feet though. Maybe toes are tucked, perhaps we're pointing, forehead to the ground or forehead supported by a prop. We may be tenting fingers. Full breath. Consider creeping fingers a little further forward, rising up to hands and knees. Rounding the back into a cat pose. We may find a little glide, shift of the hips, moving the hips back into child's pose. Sliding forward, dipping into cow, where we can stay as we are, or perhaps we turn the hands out a little bit, make some space, moving forward perhaps into a cobra position. Maybe a little wobble, a little rock of the pelvis, sliding the hips back, tuck the toes, let the hips rise, moving back into dog. Head may nod, nod circle. Perhaps we step that left foot forward, followed by the right, taking kind of a narrow, and this will be an exaggerated walk. So you're peeling the back heel. If it happens to be your left foot right now, that left heel up, and then we're trading so that we can peel that right heel up until we're bringing our feet up to meet the hands. Take a moment, put a little bend in the knees, root to rise, circle the arms all the way up, thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. We may sink the hips, bend the knees, slide the ribs back, the hips back. Invite the arms up, draw the arms towards cactus, hug the elbows in. We might get a little rounding in the back. Open it back up, we may be arching. Exhale, rounding like cat. And inhale, we may find a bit more arch. Let's exhale, tip in. You are welcome to have hands on blocks. Right foot forward, left foot moving back. So we're finding that low lunge position. And perhaps we take that left hand wider to the left and circle the right arm up in the air. Feel free to drop the back knee down at any point. And let's cycle that top arm up and overhead. Perhaps you slide the right foot back and just navigate left foot a little closer. Lift the heart. Right leg moving back. So we're just setting up for that lunge on the second side. Give yourself a moment. Find your spot. Find the breath. Right hand wide. Left arm rising. And let's cycle that top arm up and overhead. Maybe we slide that left foot back, navigate right foot forward, looking out, and exhale, chest to thighs. Let's put a little bend in the knees, forearms to thighs. Take your time, let the hips sink. Sink a little lower, rooting to rise. Thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. So consider if you've got two blocks or maybe the chair. They're right up at that top short edge of the mat. Sink the hips, bend the knees, circle the arms high. As we exhale, tip on in, find the blocks or hands to the ground, right foot forward, left leg back. Let's bend into that front knee. Maybe the back knee is touching down, chest rising, finding a little more arch, a little more back bend. Take this as slowly as you like. We may be working that front leg closer to straight, tipping into more of a forward bend. Let the head perhaps find a gentle, gentle nod. And consider repeating. So bending perhaps both knees. Chest may rise. We may take our hands wider, the blocks wider. And then sliding the hips high, finding that forward bend. Perhaps we slide that right foot back, shift the weight forward. We may move our hands, our block hands further forward. Let that left leg rise. Put as much bend in that right knee as needed. Bend the left knee out to the left. Hug left knee in towards the right. Let that left foot land. Rise halfway up, second side. So we have left foot forward. We have right foot reaching back. Take your time. Maybe back knee finds its way to the ground. And we may just pause and say, yep, I feel that. Little nod to the head. Check in with the breath. You do not have to go further. You do not have to go anywhere else. Maybe we're adjusting the hands back and arching the back a bit more. We may tuck the back toes, let the hips rise. Maybe we tap, navigate that back foot in, and consider extending that left leg closer to straight. It doesn't mean it has to go there yet or at all. If and when you're ready, we may bend back into front knee, back knee. The chest may be rising, maybe the hands are coming out a little wider. Your back toes could be tucked or pointed, whichever your knee prefers. So hips perhaps rising, navigating. Consider that forward bend, left leg working closer to straight. Maybe some little nods of the head. What is your body asking for? To stay longer, to go back into the lunge position? We may slide that left foot in, start to load the leg. We may take the hands a little further forward. Let that right leg rise. Put as much bend in the standing knee as needed. Bend the right knee out to the right. Cycle the right knee in alongside the left so you're like a flamingo. And then landing right foot down to the ground. We may encircle the big toes, first 2 fingers and a thumb. Head heavy, neck long. Hips may sway or shift a little side to side if that feels right for you. Perhaps we rise halfway up and slide the palms under the feet. So we may be standing on the hands. Perhaps we use the toes as a massage tool. We may flip the hands over the other way, standing on the backs of the hands, palms down, hinging at the elbows. We may tent the fingers forward, put a little bend in the knees, forearms to thighs, hips sinking lower. Take your time, maybe a little lower, rooting to rise. We'll come all the way back up to stand, thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. And I turn to the side of the mat, but you may still be at the top short edge of the mat with your blocks. So consider again sinking the hips, bending the knees, reaching the arms high, ribs back, finding that forward fold. We may keep right leg forward, reach left leg back. Option to put left knee down always. We might walk the hands up that right thigh. Hands may find the hips, throat back, crown of the head high. Fan the right toes. Perhaps the arms rise, reaching up. Let's rebend elbows, bring the hands down to the ground, hands forward. Consider sliding that right foot back. Load the right leg, left leg rises. Maybe we tip in a little deeper, a little lower. Eventually bending that left knee, bringing the knee out to the side, flamingo leg. Land left foot alongside the right. Let's rise halfway up, left foot forward, right leg reaching back. Take your time. What's going to work on this side? Hands climb up the thigh, hands to the hips. Fanning left toes, the arms may rise, the gaze may rise, rolling that right hip forward. Rolling the pinkies in if the arms are overhead. Rolling that inner left leg in towards midline. Rebending, releasing, perhaps we slide that left foot back, load that left thigh. Right leg comes higher, maybe fingertips come to the ground. We may be bending right knee when you feel ready, out to the right. Take your time, go slow for more fun. Draw that right knee alongside the left. Let that right foot land to the ground. Let's take a moment, rise halfway up, rock back on the heels, turn the toes out, peel the heels up. Consider a squat, a lower squat. Now maybe we're moseying, so we may tip onto the little toe side of one foot, find the middle, tip to the little toe side of the other foot. You may want to be up a little higher with hands on props. Now we might prefer to stack our blocks and sit on them. Maybe it's 1 or 2 blocks. So what feels best in your body? We may take a block, and again, I'm mirroring directionally facing you. So we may place that left hand down on the floor or block. What feels right in your hips, your back? To the lower, maybe to stay up higher. Maybe we keep the elbow, the forearm on the thigh. Right hand to the right knee, to the shoulder. Perhaps we're reaching that arm up in the air in a twist. We'll bring it back to the middle, trading sides. So maybe you're taking it lower. You might prefer to get closer to the ground. You may be staying higher up. We'll find our way back to the middle, and perhaps we're holding a prop, just a possibility. Hugging those legs in towards midline, rocking off anything we might be sitting on, and rising up to stand. Let's release the prop down, keep it nearby. From the top edge of the mat, let's step out for a wide stance. So all the toes face the long edge, and then we turn the right toes towards a short edge, lunging into that front knee. Re-extend, fan the toes. How does that feel in the hip and the knee? Lunge, bend. Where's the knee want to go? Is it tipping in? Roll it back out, fan the toes. Let's make our way down. Open the arms out towards a warrior 2 position, peering over to the right. Perhaps movement in fingers. Let's make our way back up through the middle, pivot the toes in, second side. We may want to start with hands on the hips and just check in with this ankle, this knee, this hip. Breathing, feeling. Temperature's been dropping, maybe the rooms are a little chillier, so just taking your time. We may be expanding, extending the arms, looking out to that second side, the knee bend side. We'll make our way back up to the middle. As we come to the middle, if the feet feel like they're sliding on the mat, take a moment, heel toe in, put a little bend in the knee, hinge at the hips. We'll find that wide-legged forward fold that's standing. Maybe just tipping the hips a little side to side, perhaps turning the fingers to face the short edges of the mat. Now we may look to the left toes, angle the left toes, and say hello to a lateral lunge. So maybe we're bending deeper into the left knee. We'll re-extend the leg, pivot left toes in, right toes out, look to the right, bending into that right knee. This can just be brief, checking in with those inner thighs. The hips again may continue to glide, slide a little. Let's heel, toe, toe, heel. And that's coming apart there. Put a little bend in the knees. Forearms to thighs. Sink the hips, rooting to rise. We'll come all the way back to stand, thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. Feel free to use a wall or just challenge the balance in the middle of the room. Perhaps left fingers on the wall, right toes back. So we've got some stretch on the toes. The pelvis is moving forward. We may take that right arm up in the air. We may start to bend the right knee, reach back, grab the foot, knee pointing down. Maybe a little nod of the head. Perhaps the left arm is now the lifting arm up in the air. How's the front of that thigh? Releasing. And let's trade sides. So second foot back, toes tucked, pelvis, heart moving forward. And maybe that left arm is rising, enhancing the stretch on that side. Perhaps we bend the knee. Maybe this doesn't feel better. Maybe it feels a lot better to keep the toes down. Go for that length. We might reach that right arm up in the air. So let's take our time, shift it out. Come back to a short edge of the mat and perhaps sink hips, perhaps bend knees, ribs back, circle the arms high, and exhale, forward fold. Chest may rise. Let's walk on back, find our dog position. We may be wiggling the heels back, lengthening, find the little head nods. Breathing around the ribs, the side and back ribs. We may wiggle the feet a little further back. Let the heels rise, undulating, rolling forward. Find your high plank. Option, of course, to get off the hands. You can always come right down to the forearms. We may be muckling the fingerprints to the ground. Perhaps we bend the knees, come all the way down to the belly, and set up again for that Sphinx pose. And maybe we find a little movement through the Sphinx. We might start to tip to one side. So let's say you're leaning to the right. We might be sending that left arm towards straight, diagonally straight over to the left. You may want to grab a block and put it underneath the right cheek, the right jawline. Breathing across that left hip. And very, very gently, let's come back to the middle. Maybe we want to put a block over to the other side if we think we may head there. So we may just find those little movements and then start to tip, tip, tip. Send the arm, that right arm or the second arm out straight, straightish. So if you're leaning left, the right arm is reaching diagonally over to the right. Breathing across the front of the hip, that front body. You are welcome to stay here a little longer, if that is your preference. And let's gradually make our way back into Sphinx. Forehead perhaps to the floor, tap the fingers, reach the fingers forward. Give the hips a little wobble rock and let that right leg come up. Invite the chest to rise and perhaps that right arm rises. And then release the arm, the leg, the brow. Breathing, the left leg rising, chest rising, left arm reaching straight up overhead. And exhale, releasing down. Consider walking the hands in and bending that right knee. How does the back, how does the knee feel about this? There doesn't have to be movement, but there could be, and you do not have to go anywhere else. If this feels great, maybe we bring the left forearm in front of the chest and grab the right foot with the right hand, hugging the heel a little closer to the hip, head of the shoulder rolling forward. Maybe the nose tip moves towards midline and releasing. So that's just a half position. We might find a little shift, a little rock side to side, and then that second knee. We do not have to go anywhere else. How does the belly feel, the low back? Maybe we're reaching back with the left hand, pressing down into that right forearm. Maybe we're hugging the heel a little closer to the glute. Breathing into belly. And releasing. Let's come on down, turn your head to one side. If you always turn the head to just one side, probably it's because it's your most comfortable side for your neck. Consider having a prop nearby, maybe a folded towel. When you're ready, turn the head to the second side. Planting the hands, chest rising, rolling back into a child's pose. We may tent the fingers, move the hands a little further forward. We may gradually roll up, slide the hands closer to the knees, tuck the toes, lifting the hips into what is perhaps a short dog. So previously, we kind of walked a balance beam, bringing our feet to our hands. This time, we might be bringing hands to feet. So we might find a little shift through the hips, side to side. Feel that weight shift into one hand, slide the other hand back, and then swap. So just shifting side to side. And gradually tipping in. Consider bending the knees. Oops, I've run into the wall. So a little bend in the knees, forearms to thighs. Let the hips sink lower. Take your time. We might be lightheaded. Sink the hips a little lower still. Rooting to rise. Let the arms come all the way up. Thumbs to brow. Thumbs to heart. Let's step wide so the feet again face the long edges of the mat. Heel toe the feet out. Right toes towards a short edge of the mat. So toes fanning. Let's lunge bend into that front knee. And maybe we know exactly where we're comfortable going this time around. So right forearm to thigh. We may drop that right hand onto a block. Extend the right leg. Unfurl the left arm, top arm. Reaching up into your triangle. And we may bend into that front knee. We may pick the block up, extend the block forward, grab it with both hands, rising up. Pivot, right toes in, left toes out. Look for that lunge bend, forearm to thigh, drop the block. If and when you're ready, extending the leg, toes fanning, and we may unfurl that top arm. Perhaps top hand to top hip, bending into that front knee. Get light with the bottom prop and arm. Extend the arms. Rooting to rise to find our way back up to the middle. We may heel toe the feet in a smidge, put a little bend in the knees, bring your block forward. Hinge of the hips, maybe hands on the block. Maybe hands moving down to the ground, heels of the hands lining up with heels of the feet. Perhaps heels of the hands peeling away from the ground. We may find a little slide glide, shift the hips. We may pivot the fingers to face back, inner wrist facing forward. We may hinge a little more at the elbows. And let's rise halfway up, heel toeing, feet in. Grab that block, take it with you. We may spin up a little higher as we rise up, bending the knees. Rooting to rise, we'll come up to stand. Let's place the blocks up at the top short edge of the mat. Right foot forward, left foot back. So instead of a tightrope or a balance beam, go wider. Let's lunge into that front knee, and perhaps we slide that right hip back just a little bit. Checking in. We may take both arms up and overhead. Warrior one foundation. We may drop that right hand to the right hip as we twist more to the right. We may take that left hand or left forearm onto the right thigh, pressing that right hip back. Perhaps we drop that left hand onto a block. It could be outside the right foot. I kind of like the left myself for added balance. So pressing down into that block, reaching that right arm up in the air. Finding your revolved triangle. Rebending the arm, rebend the knee. Navigate that back foot in, just enough to move the hands forward. Load that right leg again, and we may be lifting left leg up in the air. Perhaps the chest is moving closer to the right leg. We may challenge the balance, moving the right hand around the right Achilles. We may lift the heart, lift the chest, put a little bend in the right knee, and tap that left knee behind the right lower leg. And we may take that leg up in the air. Tap, we might put the left toes down. We may extend that left leg out to the left. Let's raise that left leg up in the air. Tap and perhaps extend. Practitioner's choice. So next time we bring that left leg up, let's bend the knee, flamingo leg, let that left foot land. Rise part way up. We may peel the heels up, drop the heels, rock back. We may turn the toes out, peel the heels up, sink the hips. We're revisiting that squat position. The heels may stay up. Maybe the heels sink a little closer to the ground, palms to the heart. We may weave the fingers together. And we'll lean up to the right as we come up to stand. We'll move back down through the middle. Reverse the cross of the thumbs before we come up to the second side. So we'll move up to the second side in that side bend. And then make our way back to the middle. Find your blocks. Let's lift the hips, rock back on the heels, pivot the toes forward. We have left foot forward, right leg reaching back. And the feet are wide, so we have that balance. We'll walk the hands up the front thigh, maybe hands on hips. One or both arms may rise, the gaze may rise. Finding balance, rotate pinkies in. We may drop that left hand, start to twist more to the left. Left hand, left hip. Right hand to left thigh. Right forearm to the thigh, maybe hand on a block. We may begin to extend that left leg. The top arm may rise. Rebending that top elbow, let's start to look down towards the toes. Find the blocks if you like. Slide that left foot back if you like. Maybe we want hands right to the ground. So that right leg perhaps rising. We may bring the left hand around the left lower leg. Chest perhaps moving closer to left leg. We may have fingers tented, lift the chest and bring that right knee behind the left lower leg. Maybe right toes touching down. Invite the leg to rise, tipping in. Knee to lower leg. We may extend the leg. We may reach that right leg back up in the air and repeat if this is fun. And then let that leg go high. Bend the right knee out to the right, the flamingo leg. Slide the knee in. Let the foot land. Consider finding those blocks. Chest rising, maybe a little shift forward, a little shift back. Turn the toes out, peel the heels up. sinking back down into the squat. So again, the heels could even have some support. Maybe the rolled up mat underneath them. You could be sitting on a block. We may just stay in squat. Perhaps it's fun to put the hands on the floor. If this is not fun, don't do it. Wrap the elbows in, hug the legs onto the arms. Now, I will say that fabric on set fabric tends to be very slippery. You might just slide right down. You might want to put a block in front of your brow for bumper protection. So we might tip forward and lift the toes, again, only if that's fun. And then slide on down. Feel free to hold it longer if this is something you love doing. Not everybody does. When you feel ready, let's root to rise. We'll come all the way back up to stand. Thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. Flex those wrists, especially if you tried out that arm balance. We may bring hands onto the ribs. If you prefer backs of the hands together or self-massage, go for it. When you feel complete with that, let's again step our feet wide. So we're in that wide-legged position. Maybe it's time to shed a layer. You've got a lot of layers on, like I do. Lift the heart, lift the chest. And as we exhale, tipping back in, finding that forward fold. Consider walking your hands forward. So this is like a wide-legged dog. And we may tip the hips back. Like we're using a yoga wall and we have our hips, they're being held by that girth attached to the wall. So fingers creeping forward. And then let yourself slide forward. So it feels a little bit like a wide-legged plank. We're not committing to a full plank, but shifting a bit of weight forward so that you can shift weight into one hand and bring one hand back. Let's say the left hand moves back. If you went the other way, that's fine. Just reverse everything I'm about to say. So take that right arm, lift it up, and you want it to go under your belly, behind the left arm. Let's start to bend that left elbow, look over to the left. Maybe we're wrapping that left hand around the outer left leg somewhere. You could start high on the thigh, but perhaps the hand comfortably slides down around the ankle, and then you creep that right hand forward again. So long left arm. And then slide forward and replace. Right hand to the ground, left hand lifts, slides under the belly. Bend the knee if it helps. Find your bind, grab that leg where it feels comfortable. Draw that left shoulder diagonally up and over to the left. Press the hips back like you were on a yoga wall. And then release, and perhaps we bring the hands, or maybe we bring the forearms down to the floor. The head is not on the floor. Pressing down into the elbows, into the forearms. Now, some of us just don't have long enough upper arm bones. The head is going to be jamming into the ground, so you might just put your forearms on blocks if that's the case. And then let's press down into the hands, lift the chest, heel, toe, feet in, start to come down towards a squat. How much challenge do we want to go with? We might grab a block and sit on it. A little easier. Shift, and maybe we try this version first. We shift the weight to one side. So you're picking right cheek or left cheek so you can get lighter on the other leg. Reach it out. Bring it in. Also, how does the hip feel? That's going to play into it. Adjust yourself so you can shift your weight and slide the other leg long. And then step the foot in, find the middle. Feel free to repeat that. Maybe that was plenty. Maybe we want to do this block free. We shift our weight to one side, we extend a leg, we might even lower all the way down to a seat, and then come back up. So maybe the getting up part requires sliding the block back in place, but perhaps we shift forward, press into the foot, and step that foot back. We may shift second side, extend. Maybe we just hover. Maybe we release down. Maybe we have that folded blanket. We're going to get it underneath our seat to help us come up. We may lift the foot, Trying to get a little momentum. Listen to your back though. Maybe we use the hands. We might press down to lift up and step that foot in. When you've had enough fun with that, we'll call that fun. Whichever side maybe was more challenging, go back to that side to help that be your descending side. We'll come all the way down, finding a seat. Check out for your blocks and your strap, and I'm going to put it the other way directionally for you. So let's reach both legs forward. Wobble rock the sits bones back. The heels are anchored. The toes, we're inviting them back towards the knees. We're sitting up tall. Do we want hands by the hips, hands behind the back to help us come out of that rounded back position? Maybe we have a little more bend in the knees, but do we lose stretch with that? Maybe we're walking fingers forward. Let's take a moment, rise up, invite the right knee to bend, moving out to the right, send that left sits bone back and wide. We may want to block underneath the right thigh, maybe just a full towel. You also might like blocks between the knees. Between the knees can be nice if the back's a little more sensitive. Maybe you're feeling very long and you want to take it out over that left leg, maybe the hands or even reaching down the left leg. We can always come up higher and support the brow. Let's begin to rise up. And if you need to come out of it for a moment, please feel free to do so. But if you have a strap, let's create a handle with the strap. So have a long tail and a handle. Some straps are very short, so they don't work as well for this. So let's bring the strap, if you have one, around the ball mound of the left foot. If you don't have one, we're just going to twist. We'll twist over towards that right knee. So with the strap, watch out for any metal or plastic hard ends. Take both arms overhead and then start to slide the right arm behind the head and out to the right. Left hand between the knees, maybe left hand coming around to that right knee. Slowly, 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 we'll unwind, sliding right leg long. Check in with how the breath feels as we gather that left foot up and in. Send that right sit bone back, maybe a little wide. We may find our blocks and tip forward or out over the right leg. Perhaps we're supporting the brow. We may audibly sigh. Maybe that forward bend goes a little lower. And you are welcome to stay longer. So we may rise partway up and loop that right foot. Find the tail, take the tail overhead, and we'll hold with the left hand. The right arm is landing between the knees or possibly on that left knee. Please stay longer in the twist if you like. So we may be unwinding We may be gathering the foot in, so we're in a cross-legged seat. Just put the strap off to the side for now. Check behind you, make sure you're not going to run into anything with your head or your hands if you walk your hands backwards. So we might just find a little shift, a little movement, keep the hands down, the hips down, and the chest may rise. So we've got a lot to consider here. The wrists, the shoulders, maybe we're not going any further. If it is your practice, perhaps we're bending the knees, pressing into the feet, and letting the hips rise. We might try it out and say, not such a good idea. Maybe I need to pivot my fingers to point back or out to the side, what feels best in your body. So every day is different. Releasing when you've had enough fun with that. It's another opportunity for a little wrist care, finger care. So we might try those counter stretches. I like hands on the thighs when that's available and extending the elbows. But that's me. I like to stretch in the forearms. We might flip the hand and reach out through the heel of the hand. Try the second hand. Find any movement that feels right for you. So keep the blocks nearby. Let's come down onto back body. Feet about hips distance apart, hands on the belly. We may just let the eyes rest. So no need to turn the head to look at the device and strain the neck. And we may use our hands on the belly. So we might just start with a little kneading motion. I'm kind of doing that in midair if you do need to look. So just gentle palpations. And you might be starting on that right side. And then just moving up to the lower ribs and traversing over to the left. And then making your way down the left side. And then just crisscross the hands. Let the hands rest on the belly. Feeling the rise and fall of the belly beneath the hands. We might find a little rock from the pinky to the thumb side of the hand, like a little motion, a little wave, where the hands could be still. So if we think about the neck, we have a space or a gap between the neck and the ground. Let's press down into bent elbows, tuck the shoulders down, fan lift the toes, invite the hips to rise. So those knees are moving forward, they're reaching forward like they could go beyond the toes. And then very, very slowly tractioning down the back, let the hips land. Consider heels of the hands at the tops of the thighs, pressing the heels of the hands into the tops of the thighs to traction the low back, softly releasing. Invite both knees into the chest. Give yourself a little rock side to side, right to left. Your choice to cross the ankles or to keep the ankles uncrossed. We may circle the knees, circle in second direction. And then let's drop the right foot to the ground. Weave the fingers around that left leg. Give a little jostle, a little bobble, hugging that left leg in. Sliding that right heel out. We might continue with a little rock. Just let that right foot turn out. Right leg is soft. Feel the belly lift towards the ceiling with the inhale. Sinking back to the ground with each exhale. Let's slide right knee in. Switch your grip. Left foot down. We might start with just a little hello, jostle, shake. And we may slide that left leg longer. Breathing. Widening, perhaps right knee a little more to the right. And then landing right foot back down to the ground. Give yourself a moment. Ask yourself if there is a wall really close by, and if there isn't, don't worry about it at all. You can do this in the middle of the room. If there is a wall that's very easy to get to, so you don't have to upregulate the nervous system, you don't have to move furniture. Maybe we shift the short end of the mat up to the wall. And maybe you have your folded blanket or even just a pillow, not too puffy a pillow nearby. If we're using a blanket, it's just a little shoulder stand fold, that rectangular fold. And we may bring that left side butt right up to the wall and then pivot down onto your back. Now, as you come onto your back, place your feet on the wall. I'm going wide with my legs only because I don't think this antique door can withstand me pressing into it too many times. But you may press your feet into the wall to lift the hips just enough to settle the hips onto your cushion and then extend your legs up the wall. So if we've got the wall, we can lean the legs against it. We're in the middle of the room. We can just take the legs straight up in the air. We may be opening the arms out wide to the side. We're feeling more like hugging in. Maybe the hands are resting on the body. Full inhales. Slow, long exhales. Perhaps it feels great to bring the arms overhead for more length. Perhaps you decide to slide the little toe sides of the feet down the wall, letting the knees open out wide to the sides. You are welcome to stay here resting as long as you like. Consider if we went for the bound angle position, bringing the legs together and back up the wall. With as little effort as possible, we bend the knees in towards the chest, press the feet into the wall just enough to hover, remove the prop. Let the hips settle down and raise that right arm overhead. Slowly rolling to rest on right side body. No hurry. Taking your time to rise up and come just far enough away from the wall where you won't run into it. If we twist, knees to the right, arms extending, perhaps head turning over to the left. And we'll bring the knees back to center, maybe find a little rock, perhaps drop the feet, shift the hips a bit to the right, rocking the knees to the left, and perhaps unfurling that right arm out to the right. Maybe it feels better to keep the elbows bent, head to the middle, or maybe nose tip turns to the right. And taking your time to gather the knees back to the middle. Find a little wobble rock, drop the feet, hips glide left, rolling to rest on that right side body. Taking your time to support yourself back to a seat. We may be placing hands over the heart. Sealing our practice with vibrational sound. Deep inhale through the nose. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this practice. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Please let me know if anyone has any questions. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.